Hello and welcome to this video on Thomas Egenes, Introduction to Sanskrit, Lesson 6. In this section I'll be dealing with the material on the opening pages of Lesson 6, starting at page 55 in the printed book, dealing with the script, grammar and vocabulary. Now we've already dealt with the individual letters, consonants standing alone, vowels standing alone. In this lesson we see how consonants are combined with vowels. Now, whereas in most languages, most alphabetic languages, if there's a consonant followed by a vowel, you write the consonant and then the vowel. In Devanagari script, the vowel in its full form appears only at the beginning of a word. That is to say, when it does not follow any other letter and does not follow any consonant. The vowels are written by means of a special sign, not the full form sign. The example is given. Let's go to my iPad screen. There we are. So on page 55, you'll see the word eka, one. And so the word begins with a vowel, e, so eka. So you write the e in its full form, like that. And the ka, we all know. So this eka, there are different ways of writing e, you can write it like that. There's just different handwriting styles that you get in any language. So this is e and ka. And when you write the symbol for a consonant with nothing more, what's known as the inherent short a is always with it. That's why this, what I've written is eka. If we wanted to write eke, we write the e and then the k and then this symbol on top. That is this now becomes eke. If you were to write like this, that would be, wrong and meaningless. That would actually look like eka-e, or if you put the virama, ek-e, that would be meaningless. That was just totally wrong. Because it's a k, we have the vowel immediately following the consonant, therefore it's written by the separate symbol. And all of the vowels, every single one without exception, have their full form and the separate symbol which you write when they're joined onto a consonant. So we know also about what's known as the virama, which literally means coming to a stop, resting, stopping, or a halt. So if you write k, if you write that is pronounced ka, with a short a, ka. If you want to write a word that ends in a k, not in a vowel, you put the virama underneath it. Little stroke there. The stopping, the stroke, indicates that there's no following vowel, and what we know is the inherent a is not pronounced after it. Now, we've discussed before the use of the virama in a ligature, that is to say, when it's normal for consonants that are next to each other to be joined together, as known as the ligature, the tying. For example, let's take the simple word asti, this is Roman here. Asti. Remember this bar because we need to put a short I here. Now here is the S. You write the S only in part and you join it to the T. So this now makes Asti. If you wrote it like this, it makes a different word. This is Asati. If you wanted to turn this into Asti by putting a virama under the S, that is really clumsy and wrong. You'd never do that. Let me do it again, clearer. No, this is wrong, what I'm writing now. Asti. Wrong. You are not allowed to write that. It's got to be written like that. There are some ligatures that become quite complex. And the more complex typefaces have these ligatures. Sometimes it cheats a bit and doesn't have it. Even on the Lexilogos Sanskrit keyboard, there are some cases where I've noticed them not making the ligature when they should. Let me give you an example. Let's take the word akanksha. Okay, we're straying a bit beyond the actual words of the page now. This is all good stuff you want to learn. Akanksha, which is like a wish or an aspiration. So, idea, and the ng on its own, it's like a d, but it's got a dot there. Okay, so that's the ng. And the ksha, as we know, is a ligature that's written like that, or like that. It's one of those rare ligatures where the original shapes of the letters are lost, because the original letters are k and sh. So this particular ligature for ksha, it is unusual in that the shapes of the original component parts are completely lost and unrecognizable. There's only that and one other one, which is the nya. Anyway, back to akanksha. Ideally, you want to see it written like this. And then the long. Now see, I'm squashing this up slightly to make room. Akanksha. Now you'll see in this ligature here, which I'll now write larger, that is an ng on top and a ksha below. You will occasionally see it written, because that's like a fiddly one, you will occasionally see it like this. To write the ng on its own, without joining it. But if you do that, you've got to put the virama under the ng. So it is not akanksha, but akanksha. Avoid it if you possibly can, because it's the presumption is that you should make a ligature. Only write the consonants separated with a virama if there's no way around it. I say, slightly disappointed with the Lexilogos, where they put the they didn't make the ligature for the unksh. Let me just call it up for you on the screen. Show what I mean. Lexilogos Sanskrit. Okay, so if I how do they do it? Capital G. Okay, they have done it here. They have done it there. Sorry, Lexilogos, I have maligned you unjustly. I'm now just going to print it on a separate page. Let's just print it here. Here we are. Let's just try it there. You see, now I've transferred it into a different typeface on my word system, and you'll see now it's separated them. That's in the Mangal. Let me just enlarge it so you can see it clearly. Now, if I alter this to my favorite typeface, which is the Arial Unicode, you see it has still separated the letters. You've got yung, the ng with the virama, and ksha. As I say, I don't fully approve of it. This is just the way the software is programmed. Note, if I just want to highlight this R on its own, it won't let me from the back. It'll let me highlight the entire ksha or none of it. If I do it manually, let me start highlighting. It highlights the whole lot. That is because, and this is correct, it is treated as one unit. So a consonant or connected consonants with following vowel are treated in writing as a single unit. And this ancient rule of the Devanagari script, I see, and I'm glad I see, it has been followed in the way that the software has been programmed, that it treats it as one unit. Okay, let's get rid of that now. So back to where we were. There we are. Now let's look at these vowels, the way the vowels join with let's take the simple letter G. G. So on its own, as we know, it is pronounced as a G. To make a long R, we don't write the full long R after it. We just write this little bar, just an upright bar. That makes Ga. Now, in Gi, remember that the short I, the bar, the upright bar comes before the vowel, before the consonant rather. It's written like that. Whereas with the long E, you have the bar afterwards. Just leave it like that. It's Ga, make it into a Gi, it's like this. Why is this short E, uniquely among all the vowels, none of the other vowels do this. Why is it written before the consonant? Well, the speculation is that in an older form of the language, again, you wrote Gi like that, and Gi like that. Not written like that now. That's how it was. And as time went on, this curve was just extended down. But in reality, it was just a little hook on top, pointing to the left for the short E and pointing to the right for the long E. But anyway, that's how they're written now, and they're always written like that, with the bar extending down to the baseline. So just remember this. I got caught out quite a lot in my early days when I was writing something, and I'd forgotten to buddhi, for example, buddhi. Or let's make it simpler, bodhi. Okay, I want to write bodhi. So I would start writing bo and the bar for the o, and then I'd write the th and the oo. You see, I forgot to leave the space for the e, so I had to cram it in there. You see, bodhi. So just remember, when you're handwriting, if it's bodhi, ba for the O, ba for the E, bodhi. There we are, that's correct, bodhi. Now look at the U. You know, the full forms, that is the short U, we've done these already, and that's the long U. And these appear, as you'll see at the bottom of page 55, as like a comma underneath, written in different directions. So the gu, like that, and gu, like that. So gu and gu. Sometimes the u gets hidden inside the letter. So, for example, ru, you do not write it like that. It's written like a little hook there. This is ru. So, for example, the word guru is written like this, guru. And likewise, for the long u, it's written inside the r, like that, ru. Gurus, in the accusative plural, gurun, would be written like this, you see. Gu, r, u, and then n. Remember, that would be guruna, so it's gurun with the virama. That's the accusative plural. Like monks would be monk, bhikshu, plural, bhikshun. Going now over to the next page, we're on page 56 in the printed book. The letter R, what we write as our subdotted R. You'll see the different styles of writing R on where they are put on. Sorry, I've lost it. Yeah, if you go, actually this is in lesson 7, page 71, in paragraph 9 on page 71, it shows you the different styles of writing some of these letters. We've already looked at the different styles of the A and the A. It's the one on the right, I write it for you here, the one on the right, A and A are far more common in handwriting. You normally won't see people writing A like that, or A like that. Just write it like that, much simpler. The R, if you look again at page 71, there's a kind of a complicated way of writing a R. Let's see. But again, the much simpler way of, and the printed book shows that, shows it slightly differently. But often it's perfectly acceptable to write a R like that, and a long R like that. Sometimes R and Ri or Ru. So these are written in the full form. Now, if we look at Gr and Gr, a Gr is like that. Be careful to distinguish it from this hook there under the Gu. This is a Gr. And the long is just like a double underneath it. That's Gr. So, for example, of the fathers. Let's make it accusative. The fathers in the accusative plural is patern. P turn. Do you know already about the rule that a r will convert a following n into a subdotted n? That's this one. Why haven't I done it here? Because if the n is the final consonant of the word, as it is in Patern, that rule does not apply. You write the normal n. For example, if we go over to of the fathers, Paternam, then the rule would apply like this. This is, some people pronounce it Petrinam or Petrunam. It's pronounced differently. Differently in different parts of India. I mean, I prefer to make it a long r, like a real vocalic R. Some people make it a r plus a vowel, distinct vowel, like r, Petrinam. I tend to think it was probably a purely vocalic R, Petrunam, but I don't think there's any real means of knowing, and you will hear it pronounced in different ways in India nowadays. This is Peternam. You see this long r under the tur. Now, the e and the I. So this is gay, and gay is written like you double the symbol, gay. Note that in handwriting, some people will write the g and then the symbol on top and then the bar last, like that. Both are correct. I tend to write the bar first before putting the bit on the top, because the simple practical reason is that it just looks neater the way I handwrite it, but that's purely my own handwriting. Now we'll do go and go. Go. Now, no, sorry, I haven't written that well. Go, go. Now, go. We have the bar. So now that looks like ga, but we have this on top of the bar. Remember now, the difference between the e and the o, when they're joined to a consonant, the difference is only in that bar. The bar which on its own would be that upright bar. That on its own would be a long R. That's the difference. The hook on the top is the same. So go, and the same principle applies with gau. G, bar, joining line, and like the O, but with a double booble on top. Sorry to use a booble, I'm not sure what the correct word is for it. So this is gau. Go and gau. And then you'll see on page 56 a note on the handwriting of the E. I'm not sure how seriously you have to take this paragraph form, not that it's going to make much difference anyway. So 5 says these vowel signs may follow all consonants. I'm reading from the bottom of page 56 now. May follow all consonants, including the semivowels, sibilants, and the aspirate. And for example, now I needn't go through these here. Just look at page 57 in the printed book, the top half of the page, where you'll see these same vowel symbols that we've just been looking at, joined to different consonants, cha and so on, through to chow, and ja through to jau. And you see it's exactly the same. If you know the consonant on its own, if you know the vowel sign on its own, then you can, in almost all cases, simply put them together, and that's that. It's as simple as that. There are a few little complications. If you look at them, you can still see the logic there. I'm looking now at paragraph 6 on page 57, where we just discussed this a moment ago. The ru is not written like that. That's wrong. It's written a little hook in there, ru. And similarly for the long ru, you put it in there like that. For the hr, that would be this one. This is the h. So you don't put the r underneath like that. No, that's wrong. You put the r inside the curl of the h. So this is hr. Where the h conjoins to a following consonant, it often is put inside the curl. So, for example, if you wanted to write this sequence, ahna, if you wrote it like that, that would be cheating slightly. Ah, H with the virama, na. It's cheating slightly. Ideally, you want to write it like this. You see? And the n inside the curve there, inside this curve of the h. So you've got to keep your eyes open. Sometimes in a printed book, it's happened to me that in a printed book with small print, I've actually had to get the magnifying glass out to see what's hidden inside the. So if you get ahlada, for example, let's look at ahlada, which is written like that. So yeah, the l written inside there. Sorry, I haven't written this in a very elegant way, but that is the ligature of the l, the h, and the l in its full form written like that, but otherwise just the characteristic shape of the l tucked inside the curve of the h. But when you analyze it, when you look at it, it follows the rule that the characteristic elements, the characteristic shapes of the conjoined letters are duly there. So now, looking at the bottom of page 57, 3 words are given that we already know. There's gaja, gaja. You also know the instrumental of that, gajena. There we are, gajena, gajena. And vira, the bar, vira. And vasati, right, vasati, vasa. And remember, short e, so leave space for the upright bar. Vasati, vasati. He sure it lives or dwells. We move now to page 58. We now get on to some grammar. So resuming now, just a little break there, on page 58, the ablative and the genitive. Ablative and genitive, of course, are terms derived from classical European grammars, particularly Latin and Greek. Of course, Greek doesn't have an ablative, but there we are. Say derived from Latin. The ablative in classical Sanskrit and Pali grammar is known as the Panchami, from Pancha, 5, Panchama, 5th, feminine form Panchami, because it's the Panchami Vibhakti, or the 5th case, the 5th division, in the order that they're always put by the Sanskrit and Pali grammarians. And the genitive is the 6th case, so the Shashti Vibhakti. Ablative is used for origin or source. It means from, also used for comparison. If you're bigger than me, and you're bigger from me, literally, you'd use the ablative there. Is motion from something. It's very often used if you say something out of anger, you're dancing for joy. Those would be the ablative. He spoke out of anger is krudhat avadat, written by Sandhi, krudha davadat. He spoke out of anger. In the paticca samuppada, the dependent co-origination, one thing arising out of another, again the ablative is used. Genitive for possession. Let's look at this one, narasya ashva. Nara, man, person, narasya ashva, written by Santi, narasya ashva. Narasya, of the man, ashva, the horse. In English, we can say the man's horse, or the horse of the man. And the order is quite rigid in English. If we want to use the apostrophe S form, it always comes before the noun that is possessed. We can't say the horse man's. That's wrong. We have to say the man's horse. And we can't say the of the man horse or of the man the horse. Again, that's bad English. This order is fixed by English grammar. So the apostrophe S form, or S apostrophe in the plural, of course, comes before the noun possessed. In Sanskrit, and the same rule applies in Pali, this asya form, which actually is etymologically cognate with our apostrophe S form, asya, apostrophe S in English, you will find it almost invariably used in the same position as the apostrophe S position in English. So you wouldn't say ashva or ashvo narasya, it would just be bad Sanskrit and bad Pali. So see, narasya, of the man, the horse, the man's horse, narasya shva, and that's normal. And it says in 4, genitive is always used in relation to the noun which follows it. So Ramasya putra, Rama's son. Amritasya putra, sons of immortality. The genitive generally is used for possession, like our English apostrophe S, but it's used in other contexts as well, for example, with certain verbs. If you're afraid, rather like in English, you see, you can fear something or you can be afraid of something. So the root bhi, the verb bhi, to fear in Sanskrit can take more than one case, but it can take a genitive case. So genitive isn't only possession, but that is by far the most common use of it. Learn them as you go along. It says that genitive is sometimes used as a substitute for other cases. Sorry, I seem to have got a techno problem here. I will pause for a moment and come back to you. Okay, fine. Just the I lost the connection between the iPad and the screen share. Genitive is sometimes used as a substitute for other cases such as dative, instrumental, ablative, and locative. Okay, that's true as far as it goes. It's not a terribly helpful statement to make. For the time being, we'll just stick to the classical use of these cases. So for the formation, turning now to page 59, for the formation of the ablative and genitive, and this is just for words ending in a short a. It does not apply to words ending in anything else. So from, let's take the word nara, in the singular narat, dual narabhyam, you will recall that there are other cases as well that in the dual use the abhyam ending. The instrumental and the dative also use it. You just have to get used to the fact that sometimes the same ending might be the ending for more than one case. In fact, you've got 4 bhyams in a row in the dual. Plural narebhya. Narebhya. Again, you may recall that the ebhya form, which incidentally is cognate with the Latin ending in ibus, dative and ablative in ibus. So I just mark that as Latin. That is the same as the ablative. So remember, the dative and the ablative are the same in the plural. It's just something that you'll have to get used to. Genitive, singular, narasya. And that, remember, is one that's cognate with our apostrophe s and s apostrophe. Genitive dual, narayo. And incidentally, in the dual, the genitive is the same as the locative. We'll come to that in the next lesson, I think it is. So in the singular, narasya, that is only genitive. In the plural, naranam, only genitive. In the dual, narayo, genitive, but also locative. So, naranam, sorry, naranam. Naranam. What have I missed out? I'll leave you to try and see it. We have a r followed in the same word by a n followed by a vowel, therefore that's got to become subdotted. It's the normal anam ending for the genitive plural of the Buddhas, buddhanam, but the n here, like anywhere else, almost anywhere else, follows the rule that with the preceding r, it becomes a retroflex n, the subdotted. So this genitive plural, you can say gajanam and balanam, page 46. They've mentioned these on page 59 just to show that the subdotted n, as that we have in naranam, if there's no preceding r, it'll just be an ordinary dental n, as in gajanam of the elephants, balanam of the boys. We now come to the use of iti. I'll write it in Devanagari. Sorry, what am I doing? Sorry, the I. Oops. It's the I. Iti. There. Iti. In Pali, but not in Sanskrit, it's very often shortened just to ti. And it can be, the one-word translation of it is thus. And sometimes it can be correctly translated. For example, iti maya shrutam. Iti, thus, maya, instrumental, by me, shrutam, heard, iti maya shrutam, thus have I heard. In Pali, sorry, it's iti maya, you also have evam. Evam maya, it's the more normal name is evam, but you can see iti maya shrutam, iti piso bhagava, because in Pali. The most common use of iti, however, is like a close quote. So if you say something, you're reporting what somebody else said. Look at the examples here. The horse goes, says Rama. That's the example in paragraph 7. The horse goes, open quote, the horse goes, unquote, says Rama. That's where you have an exact quote. In English, you put in quotation marks, says Rama. You could also put, Rama says that the horse goes. Rama says that the horse is going. I'm going, says Rama, or Rama says that he's going. So we have the direct quote and the indirect quote. He told me that he was leaving. Or he said these words, I am leaving. So we can express it in one of two ways in English. It's the Latin oratio directa and oratio obliqua, the direct speech and indirect speech. Indirect is where you don't quote somebody's exact words, but he told me that he was going. You weren't repeating his exact words, you put repeating them indirectly. His exact words were, I am going. But you say, oh, he told me he was going. You can't do that in Sanskrit or Pali. In Sanskrit and Pali, you have to, if you're quoting what somebody else is saying, you have to quote his exact words as where we would, for example, write them in quotation marks in English, somebody's exact words. So what do you do in Sanskrit and Pali? You repeat, if you say somebody, so-and-so said that something, you repeat his exact words and then put iti. Iti is like close quote. By the way, you don't open the quote. Sometimes it's a bit of a puzzle to work out in running text where the quote opens, but you always know where the quote closes, and that's where the iti is. So, the horse goes, said Rama. I'm looking at the middle of page 59. Ashva gachati. Ashva gachati, his words, the horse goes. Iti, close quote. Rama vadati. Rama says. And with Sandhi, of course, Ashvo gachati ti Ramo vadati. Note that with iti, as with anything else, almost anything else, you have to make the sandhi. So it's not gachati iti, but gachati ti. Now, yes, in paragraph 8, page 59, that makes the point that I've just made, that you don't have indirect speech. He said that he was going. There's in Sanskrit, indirect quotations must first be turned into direct quotations. So he says that he is going, indirect quotation. Quote, I am going, unquote, he says, direct quotation. Only the second one is permissible in Sanskrit. So, gachami iti vadati. And with Sandhi, gachami iti vadati. So, also iti, the most common use of it is for the the closing of a quote. But it's not necessarily a verbal quote, like a quote of it. It's mostly you're quoting somebody's exact words, iti, he said. It is often used to indicate a mental state or a fear or a desire. So, for example, I'm afraid to go into that house because it's haunted. I'm afraid to go into that house because it's haunted. If you put that into Sanskrit or Pali, it would run, you can even leave out the word afraid. Now, you understood, I won't go into that house. Well, that house is haunted. Iti, I'm not going in there. I'm not going there because it's a dangerous place to be. That is a dangerous place to be. Iti, I'm not going there. So in other words, this, what comes before the iti is not necessarily direct words, but it's rather like direct mental words. You're expressing a fear, a desire, a hope. Iti as the reason for doing or not doing something. We'll see that as we go along. So but remember, it has this meaning of thus, close quote, meaning quoting actual words, or what you are mentally saying to yourself, what your fear is. Iti, that's why I'm doing it, that's why I'm not doing it. So this now brings us, oh no, it doesn't, not quite to the end, just the vocabulary here, before we go on to the translation exercises. Just a bit of vocabulary here on page 60. So, atra, meaning here. Let's write it in Devanagari. Atra. Oh, you say, what is that shape there? Okay, that shape is ta plus r. The r, when it immediately follows the word, is normally written as a little sign like that. For example, krodha. You see? The krodha. Anger. If I just wrote that, this would be kodha. I'm not sure if that word exists. Kodha. But the r, the, and sra. Sa, sa, sra. So that little tick there underneath makes it r, following the consonant. Sra. Sometimes consonants change their shape slightly. So you can see this. This is a t. If you want to write the r in it, you would write it like that. Well, we don't write it like this. No. You shorten the t. You have the bit at the top rather than the r. So this is tra. This is atra. Sometimes you just have to put your mind into soft focus a bit. Yes, you can see, it's as if we're trying to be a t, but stopped. And then you put this r underneath. So atra. We've had tatra there. Kutra, where? This tra suffix representing place. You know, atra here, tatra there, kutra, where? We have this gum plus gum becomes agachati, comes. This verbal prefix not to be confused with the short ah, which is entirely different, like it negates something, rather as in, which we have in English from Greek. the alpha privative, we call it the alpha that negates. This a generally has the meaning of onto or towards or at. It can also have, as here, in a few verbs, not all of them, a few verbs, it, as it were, reverses the direction of the verb. Gum, to go, agum, to come. Da, to give, ada, to take. So you have the alpha privative, dinna, given, adinna, ungiven, dana, giving, adana, taking. So adinna, adana is the taking of the ungiven, taking what is not given. That is the adinna and the adana, two entirely separate sounds there, and a. And of course, adinna adana by sandhi becomes adinnadana, adinnadana. Iti, we've just discussed, indicates the end of a quotation, and grama. Grama is a village. Grama is a stem form, it's a masculine noun, grama. The English is actually from the originally from the root gri, grib. That's the older form, and the b is sometimes softened to a grib, grub. Our English word grab, by the way, grab and grip come from that same root. It means to grab or to take. So grip, grab, a group, something that's put together. A group is from that same root. Something that is taken together, as it were, clenched into one, is a group. And this word grama, with the loss of the b and h, is a grouping. It's a collection of houses. The grama, it's a group of houses. So the gr of grama is the same as our gr of group. And the German word, griffen, a begriff in German, something you begrip, is a concept. So that brings us now to the end of the script, grammar and vocabulary section. And I'll now go on to a separate video where I'll deal with I'll take you through the exercises of lesson 6. Right, that's it on this video.